I called the three of you here to inform you officially that the Utilities Board of the City of Cullman has filed a lawsuit in connection with the Duck River Dam against CH2M HILL, the design engineer for the dam, ASI Constructors, Inc., that was the general contractor that constructed the facility, and WESTERN SURETY COMPANY, which is the bonding agent that, kind of assured that we'd get a good job from the two of those. Since the reservoir filled in December of 2015, we have had some water flow through the gallery of the dam that was more than the design standard. Every dam like that is designed to have water to flow through it. It relieves the pressure on the dam. There's a drain inside of that thing that is a foot wide and 18 inches deep, or 18 inches wide and 12 inches deep. I don't remember the number, but designed. Takes the pressure off of it. It also is a way for you to monitor to make sure that in those drains that the water remains clear, that you don't see something that makes you think the dam is degrading or you're getting dirt through there or something that would make you think there was a problem, as long as it was clear. From the time that reservoir filled, you had more water than was intended, and we have worked with the general contractor and the engineer to find out what those problems were and how to resolve them, who was responsible for resolving. The first thing we did was bring a couple of other engineering firms in to look at that and say, hey, this is concerning water flowing through that gallery. You see it, is this a structural issue, something we need to worry about, the integrity of the dam, that kind of thing. Nobody has implied that that is an issue, been assured that that wasn't a concern or something that we needed to worry about. But for 18 months or so, we have tried to get the two of those, the engineer and the general contractor, to correct that water. They would look at it. We've had a couple other people look at it, and they'd go, well, maybe what you need to do is coat the face of the dam. Maybe what you need to do is put grout around the drain expansion. It's like an expansion joint, but that's not the proper term. 2 or 3 different times we've had the general contractor on site, and they were preparing to do the work, and they pulled off for whatever reasons. So it has never been done. We're running out of time based on the legality of the process to do something that holds their feet to the fire to make sure that that is done. What we have seen from them is that each is blaming the other. The general contractor says it's an engineering design issue that's causing the water to come through the dam more than designed or intended or projected or whatever the term is. The engineer's saying we designed everything right. It's a construction issue where the general contractor is the one responsible. Then WESTERN Surety is the bonding agent that assures that both of those, that we make sure that we get the quality product that we contracted with them and agreed to pay and do. And we paid CH2M HILL $8 million and ASI $50 million. So the utilities board and the water customers don't build dams, they don't do construction, they don't do design engineering. The two of those should not be responsible for making sure that you have a quality product. It should be done by those others. What we're asking the court to do is filed in Cullman County Circuit Court is not award us money, not do any of those things, but to help us identify which of those is actually in breach of contract, whether it's the general contractor, whether it's the design engineer, or it's the insurance bonding company for us, and to direct whichever one of those that is to correct that problem for us, so that we end up with the product that we were intended to have, and that we're able to provide the water and generate the things that we need. Some of this water in the last month we have found is in part of the electrical wiring on the gallery inside of there, so there's water in it messing up some of that. We had an electrical company out there last week. They said that we needed to replace some of that wiring, so you have the water in it. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that water and electricity doesn't mix. You got to fix that. And that's the way you can open and close the valves and control the flow and that type of thing. So that's what we're trying to do. We've just been unsuccessful in getting them to resolve this issue. You're running out of time. If you don't, there's a statute of limitations on the amount of time that you can sue and that kind of stuff. And legal counsel says we're pushing on that. And so they filed the paperwork today to help us get an answer of what we needed to do there and how to fix it.
So Dan, if I hear what you're saying correctly, the dam structurally strong is not in danger of collapse, but it's effectively seeping water, leaking water over and above the original design standards. Right. And nobody will fix it. Right?
And nobody will fix it. The water is more than intended in the design or the plan, but it is not more than we have to release for downstream conditions any time of the year. Even in drought conditions, there's less water going through the gallery than you're required to release. So it's not like we're paying extra money for the water that we're losing and those kind of things. It's water that you have to have downstream. But we would like it to run through the way it's intended rather than coming through, the sides and overflowing the gallery. When it first came through, you had water knee deep in the gallery instead of in that trough. Well, they've done some piping, they've made some adjustments, they've made some changes, and that water has been reduced some. Part of it is the lake level is down 20 feet. We reduced that because a couple of times ASI was going to go in there and do some work on the face of the dam and those expansion joints and see if that solved the problem. Every time they pulled off of that construction piece and have not done the work.
Why is that, Dale? I mean, you're telling me that they were out there poised to make this repair, this fix, but they won't do it? Well, why is that?
They get back into the blame game again. They'll go, well, we would do this if we got a substantial completion sign off on the engineer. The engineer's saying, why would we sign off it's substantially complete if you got water running through it that's not intended? So it's, I think it's jockeying for position. I don't know a better way to say that than just, that they're both blaming the other. And we just go, gosh, we're not responsible. Somebody's got to tell us who that right entity is and make sure that we get it fixed. And if you didn't do something by, I believe Monday was the deadline, is my thought process on what the attorney said. So if we didn't do something by then the ratepayers and us were going to pay down the road, and we figured out whatever that solution was.
And it's unknown what the cost of the solution would be, I suppose.
That's correct.
Wow.
If they do the expansion joints and that fixes it, well, that was the cheap fix. If you got to coat the whole face of the dam, then that's a couple million. It just depends on what the exact fix is. And until they go in there and start doing some of the things, you don't know.
Well, why wouldn't your bonding company just step forward and say, hey, this is broke down. You signed a contract with us. Here's some money. Let's have a third party fix it. And why are they not participating?
I read, you're asking me to tell you what a 50-page lawsuit said, but I think it was page 23 when it did. A conference among Utilities Board, ASI, and Western Surety occurred on June 22nd of 17. The counsel for Western Surety wrote the Utilities Board to state Western Surety's contention, which is not accepted by us, is that the corrective work and corrective work agreement are not part of the ASI construction contract, and therefore we don't cover that as part of our performance bond. So, that's why we're saying, court, help us identify which of those three is really, is culpable, the word, responsible. I do know how to say responsible, so I'll make it that one.
So basically they're just kicking the can around to each other, and you guys are left holding the bag.
That's right.
Basically it?
And we're just out of time.
Wow.
And when you look through that, you'll see all of the times, all of the meetings, all of the things you had were 2 or 3 times you were ready. I think the ones in there about they even set up the scaffolding on the dam to do the grounding the expansion joints and then pulled off. And now I do believe this explains to you that ASI has sold their business, their interest, their equipment, and all of the things. And it said the surety company is the one who is responsible now, not them.
So ASI doesn't exist anymore? The company who built it in, effectively?
I don't know the real answer to that.
Okay.
I apologize. It says in here something what they did. It sold their assets and it just said something under parentheses, new name, company or something. We may not even know what that is, but that'd be a Roy Williams question, not a Dale question.
Right.
I'm sorry.
If the repairs are not made to the dam, has anyone looked into the potential long-term effects that could have?
I don't know the answer to that. We've had a couple of engineers look at it and they said it's not a thing there. Eventually water running through something makes you a little nervous. But is that a real, you know, you can take a hose and squirt it on a concrete floor for 25 years and it'll make a mark. You know, walking on it or wear it. So, you know, that's something somebody besides us has to do. And that's part of the thing why you want to make sure that you get it fixed. You know, that you don't want to let that go on 10 years or 20 years or 50 years or whatever the life of a dam is.
And so this was litigated, filed today, just a few minutes ago. But it's probably a Roy Williams question, but this seems like the kind of case that could go on for months, years, rather than days, weeks.
That, you know, when you get into court, when you get into legals, you never know about that. But I think it's something you would go, hey, this is something that you've got to fix. You can't let this go on or it could become some kind of issue. So you try to get some resolution to that, I would think, fairly soon.
So bottom line, as far as I think citizens and residents would be concerned, downstream people are safe. This is not some kind of catastrophic break in the dam or something that's super structurally flawed with the construction, correct, to the best of your understanding?
To the best of my understanding, that's correct.
Okay.
And I think we said in here that we were saying ASI was negligent, CH2M HILL was negligent, and the bonding company was negligent, or all three, and just help us identify. I was trying to find that, but I don't see that right there at the spot.
How does this affect the usage of the dam? I know you've been putting fish in, working on boat ramps, bike trails. Does this have any effect on citizen usage of the lake itself?
You know, we haven't opened the lake to use for boating or any other thing at this point because you still had active construction out there. As I said, at one point we had scaffolding on the side of the dam. We're doing work with that. We're still building the trails, and you're still doing the intake, not the intake structure, but the pumping station right at the top of the dam that would take the water to the treatment plant. And we actually opened the bids a week or so ago on the pipeline itself. I think y'all are familiar with that. So that's in place. But we need the electric repairs too, where you make sure that your gate opens the way it's intended. You know, there's a safety precaution that is manual operation of all of those. But if you got water in the electric wires and that kind of stuff around that, who wants to be in a manual operation on things like that? Yeah, count one is breach of contract against the engineer and negligence, and then it's the same 2 counts on the general contractor. And then I think on the bonding company, we just said breach of contract. And then count 6 is that we get declaratory judgment against all of them to correct the issue. Any more questions?
First thing, as far as timeline on kind of when this dam will be up and running and operational, kind of what y'all looking at as for completion.
Don't know. You know, it would not be operational today.
Right.
You wouldn't be able to do it the way it is. We couldn't, I mean, if we had the intake done. We're still a year away from having the pipeline done, you know, which was the original timeline on the thing anyway. When you built the reservoir and it was filled and everything was in place, it required to sit a year and be monitored by Adam and Tim Scott, you know, has been the guy doing all of the monitoring. So it is really just right on schedule. When we finished the dam and plugged the dam in 15, it was supposed to be filled by November of 16, and you would have had to wait until November of 17 before you could use it. So they're running pretty close on that side, but I do not know about the repairs and the timing on it.
I'm wondering if y'all have a backup plan for construction, because this page 21 in here, representative of Western Surety stated to the Cullman Utilities Board that Western Surety had been required to pay millions of dollars for payment bond claims due to non-payment by ASI, and that as far as Western Surety was concerned, quote unquote, ASI no longer exists. Is there another construction company out there? Is there any kind of backup plan? Has there been any feelers put out to someone else who could come in and finish this? Or
This has just occurred. I think that said June 22nd or something.
okay,
So that just happened. You know, we
Alright.
just did it. But there were several other companies that quoted prices on that to do the construction that have that kind of expertise. You know, so there's somebody else that could look at it and make the adjustments if we just identified who they were. But I think their deal was just arguing over who was responsible for it rather than how to fix it.
Is there any kind of scenario that y'all are looking at where, the cost is passed on to ratepayers?
No, you know, that's why you're saying that we need to have them do that and fix it and whatever the cost is. And then because the ratepayer shouldn't be responsible.
I shouldn't have come over here.
You know, you blew it.
Damn, I didn't know you said this over here.
What I'm telling them is still what I'm telling them, Mayor. She just said, was there any way that we had a process or a thought of putting this on the ratepayers? And I said, no, that's why we're doing this the way we're doing it. That they're
Our whole thing has been to make sure that the customers, ratepayers have been protected, and we've tried to, every way possible to get them to the table, and they won't come to the table, so we feel like this is the only means left.
short thing is just that, you know, neither one of them has taken steps to correct the defect. And it just doesn't seem like it's that.
Well, it's kind of like, you know, he did it, no, he did it, no, he did it, kind of thing. And so
We ran out of time.
yeah, and then the, you know, the contractor, I don't know what he did. In the legal world, you know, but so now you're dealing with the bonding company to boot, which is not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it's a good thing, you know, from a ratepayer standpoint. So.
And the purpose of the bonding company is to make sure that a situation like this doesn't happen and you're stuck with the responsibility. Does that make sense? I mean, there are insurance policies.
Yeah, it's like big insurance.
And they go, oh, but we're not responsible either. Well, one of the three of them is, we just got to get the judge help us determine which one.
Yeah, I was kind of wondering about that. The Western Surety's contention, not accepted by Cullman Utilities Board, that corrective work and corrective work agreement are not part of the construction contract and not covered by their performance bond. It seems like that's exactly the kind of thing
Yeah,
that would
if
be
y'all
covered
turn those
under a
recordings off, I'll say, well, then what the hell is? You know?
If I was him, that's what I'd say too. You know, it's kind of one of those things. But, you know, we're just basically, I'm sure he's explaining, we're just trying to get somebody to say, look, either you're responsible or y'all are responsible, and, you know, let's fix it. And then, you know, either you pay for it or y'all pay for it.
Well, can I play Donnie Downer for a second?
Sure.
Worst case, this goes to court, takes whatever period of time, the court rules not in your favor, and you're stuck with a seeping, leaking dam. How do we proceed from that point?
At that point, you get another engineer in and figure out what the fix was and what the cost was, and figure out how to repair it.
Yeah, because we were close to what they thought might fix it. Now, they didn't know, but they thought that they had and they're actually set up out there, and we're fixing to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And then everything shut down. And that was,
And that was, you know, a couple of engineers looked at it and said, inject ground into those, what are they?
monolithic joints.
Monolithic joints. I could not think of the term. It wasn't expansion.
There you go. That's
But
where
you do
came
that,
up.
and they thought that would fix it. Well, nobody ever did it.
Makes
And they
sense.
said the second option is to coat the face of the dam, and then the third was something else. But you got to do one of them before you know whether that's the answer or not.
So it may just come down to spackle it.
Yeah, kind of, yeah.
That's essentially what that grout is. That it just blows it into that under pressure.
They just can't
You
decide
know,
who's
if
going
that
to
seals the
spackle it.
water.
Well, you know, I had back in my past, I used to build homes and commercial buildings for a living. And we had contractors who would disappear and belly up. What was the story with ASI? Were they not financially solvent? I mean, how does a big company like that who takes on a $50 million project just disappear like this? I mean, do you have any ideas?
Well, you know, we don't know, and that's another attorney thing. And they didn't really disappear. They just put a different
Assets.
put a different cap on.
I've sued contractors who decided to sell their assets, so I know what's going on.
Yeah.
It seems fishy to me. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And it does to us, and again, the judges and the attorneys will figure that one out.
Okay.
I'm sorry, no, go ahead, I'm sorry.
It didn't smell good, I guess is a good way to put it.
Yes, ma'am.
I assume is Judge Nicholas handling this case?
I don't know. They generally, does his name in there or something?
Well, I just, cause one of his boy's sisters, what, I was asking.
They generally assign those.
Okay. I
You know,
he's doing
I think they do, and when you have your two judges, they come in by number, and one gets odd cases.
They-